Okay, I'm here with Mike Stokes. We are talking about immunity. Mike Stokes, you have so much to share with us about how you tend to your immunity in your morning ritual and throughout the years that you've experienced allergy reaction. Tell us more about some of the key points, some of the things you've really learned that are very helpful to you.
The first thing that I think is really important for everybody to realize is that we have these wonderful things called mushrooms, fungus, mycelium, and 70% of all pharmaceutical drugs are derived from mushrooms. And so you can totally bypass the pharmaceuticals and go straight to the best mushrooms to build your immune system. And almost all mushrooms have some immune building or stimulating effect. So that's number one that I do.
Okay, Mike, tell me about mushrooms. I want to hear more. What mushrooms are the most important to use? Are we talking about mushrooms from the grocery store that are fresh?
Yeah, we all are tight on time and resources. And so I always just try to find the highest potent thing that I can. And so the most potent mushroom that we know of is the Reishi mushroom, and then also the chaga mushroom. Cordyceps is also very potent, but more expensive and harder to get. So what I do is we either Star West Botanicals or Rosemount Herbs. I'm not sure which one. Usually whichever one has an organic mushroom. Super important to get organic mushrooms, because mushrooms are bioaccumulators and they will accumulate metals up into the fruits. So you really want them from a clean source. So what I'll do is I'll take a big pot of water and I'll throw in, like, the best is the little sliced reishi mushrooms. They come pre-sliced. Sometimes they're hard to get and you have to get a whole reishi mushroom. They're like this big. I'll either throw in that whole mushroom and then a couple, like almost a fist size or a little bit less of fist size. I'm talking like a big pot. Probably, when was that, a 6-quart or 8-quart pot. I'll just throw them in there and heat it up. And then it's like, if you've ever been to a traditional Chinese medicine doctor, they give you all those herbs. And if you're doing it the bulk way, they give you a clay pot and you cook it for 2 hours and then you drink the herbal concoction. So I just put that in my stainless steel container on my stove, cook it up. And then I'll either take that, and if I'm drinking coffee or decaf, I'll pour that straight through the coffee or the decaf. If I'm not drinking coffee or decaf at the time, I'll pour that into an earthy tea, or I'll have some, make a chai out of it. And then it's always there on our stove. So every morning I get up, I put some reishi, I have some reishi and chaga to start the day. And if I'm feeling like I want to have a little coffee, then it'll be reishi chaga coffee. If I'm feeling like, I need to be really clean and have just herbal teas, then it'll be reishi chaga herbal teas. So that's how I do that. It's the most affordable way to get a high potency medicine.
How does this act in the body?
To be honest with you, there's certain things that I do. Like I do MSM. I don't know if we've talked about that before, and that I really can feel the potency effect very readily after a week. Mushrooms are slower. It's a slower effect. You have to be patient to notice it. I've done so much research that, I know the power of the mushroom, and so I trust it. So I couldn't really, honestly, I can't really say, well, it makes me feel this much better. I can say honestly that I get sick less. My allergy symptoms are lower when I'm on that routine. And I just have more, I just feel more, there's more immune space. That sounds a little esoteric, but that's really what it feels like.
Well, I think our best remedies are slow and consistent commitments to a relationship with a plant or a relationship with a practice.
Yeah. I 100% agree. And so, when I learned that in traditional Chinese medicine, they called Reishi the king of herbs, it was the top of the chart. I researched it and saw, I really liked the folklore of it too, the really ancient, wise old being that's got his reishi mushroom. And so I just adopted it. And, I had another thought, but I lost it. So
Talk to me about a whole system approach to allergy prevention. So it's not that it's the morning and it's polleny out and my eyes are red, but it's spring solstice and spring equinox, and I know this is coming. What practices can I adopt? What mindset shifts can I bring in to start to build up my defenses?
Yeah. So, I got my first allergies when I was probably, 10 years old. So that's 38 years ago. And so over those years, I really realized that you have to think of yourself as a container. So you're this container, and in traditional Chinese medicine, they call allergies holes in the immune system. So when, for some reason, your body overreacts to particular substances. And so one of the things I think is so important for people, I hear people talk about this a lot. They're like, oh, I'm allergic to this and I'm allergic to that. And they talk about it as if it's a stagnant state, as if it's always the same. And it's the farthest thing from that. It's constantly moving depending upon your overall state of health. The more that you sort of invigorate the whole body system, the less allergic to everything you become. And so I think one of the best ways to do that is to really nurture your internal fire. And one of the best ways that you do that is with really strong probiotics. Now, ancient kefir grains are one of the best ways to do that. They have the broadest spectrum of probiotics. Really modern, great companies like Garden of Eden. They have their best one that I know of is the 55 and Wiser. It's a little more expensive, but that's another great way to do it. Just getting as much of that probiotic material. Every indigenous culture, I think, has in their regular diet a strong probiotic to keep that gut flora healthy. We just went to a birthing class last night, and one of the most critical things for your baby's health is that first injection of all the probiotics that you get into their body through the breast milk. So that's number one. And in our modern culture, our guts get assaulted by all these toxins and stuff, and we need to give them extra support. So one would be the probiotics. The second thing that I do is, caffeine and external stimulants, they sort of give you the rush from the outside, but then there's internal stimulants like ginger and licorice, and those sort of bring up that internal fire. And even things, this may sound kind of odd, but, I was just thinking of sit-ups, and sit-ups are, not a great exercise, but they build, or Pilates, anything that builds your core strength, that fire in the belly, if you literally think of creating fire in that red chakra color in the belly, that's going to give you more immune power for your whole system of your body. So think, and reducing things like sweets, and really heavy things, those are going to just sort of bring down that energy. If you have a flare-up, it becomes critical to them calm the system down. So you're not necessarily going to do as much ginger and licorice and sit-ups and stuff like that in the middle of a flare-up. In the middle of a flare-up, you may be taking some sort of more sedative herbs and isolating yourself, getting out of a pollen-rich environment if allergies come from pollens for you. So there's that constant balancing act between, you kind of got to cool the body down, you got to calm it down, and then at the same time, lift the fire up from the inside.
That's a really beautiful metaphor. I am curious to know how this translates into our psychology. So like, what kind of qualities would we notice in abundance when our digestive fire is really strong?
Yeah. Well, the easiest one is confidence. You'll actually feel more confident. And they've actually really done some great scientific studies that have shown that the more broad spectrum probiotics you have in your gut flora, the healthier that area is, the more willpower people have, the more just you're ready to get up and go. When you're in that healthy state, you're actually going to feel more expansive too. Like your energy kind of holds up more space. What you're creating holds a little more space. Your desire to manifest in the world, whatever it is, is when your digestive gut and that fire is happening, that's all going to be growing. When it's suppressing, it's all going to kind of come in, obviously. So and psychologically, it is that state of outward expression.
And then the whole idea of allergies being holes in the system and having like a constant state of defense, as well as recovery practices for when you're in a flare-up, it really calls to mind boundaries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. There's a wonderful book by Gabor Mate. It's called When the Body Says No. And the basic premise of the book is he studied all these people who had all these, they had all these psychological disorders, and most all of them were very weak boundaries. Like they had an abusive relationship with their mother and they couldn't pull themselves out of it, or an abusive relationship with a partner, but it was always a state where they couldn't stand up for themselves. And that translated into these cancers of all kinds in the gut and other types of digestive disorders that just literally killed them. And so, you know, they talk about the second brain, right? There's just as many brain cells in your gut as there are in your brain. It's not exactly that, but they're the same kind of cells with the same sensitivity. And that's why when you get nervous, you feel it in your gut. You know, when you get excited, you feel it in your gut. So those boundaries, it's critical that when you're, and this is I'm really glad you asked me this question. If you just do the herbs and you just do the exercises and you just do the visualizations, and then you go over to, you know, your boss or your partner or your family, and then you're not holding that space emotionally, it's going to shut that stuff all right back down again. So, and you can approach it from either side. You go out and have an important boundary conversation with someone very important in your life that hasn't been working, and that will help your digestion a little bit. You go and you have some herbs and you take some more probiotics and you have some ginger tea, and that'll help you go have that conversation with them. But if you don't, it's almost like if you don't, I can't even say almost. If you don't hold your emotional, physical space in a healthy, boundaried way, you're never going to get those herbs and probiotics to work right. You have to do, that work is the most important work. You want to use all the herbs and the probiotics to get yourself to do that. But that is the most important work, to hold that space, and then everything else can fill in inside of that.